Welcome, traveler. Please have a seat. Let this old shade share some stories with you. In July 1954, a man arrived at Tokyo's Haneda Airport. He looked European, well-dressed in a suit, briefcase in hand. At first glance, nothing seemed unusual, but then he handed over his passport. That's when things got strange. The passport was from a country no one had ever heard of, a place called Taured. The customs officers, thinking perhaps it was a mistake, examined the document more closely. It looked authentic. The man's passport was covered in visa stamps and customs endorsements from previous trips to Europe and Asia. He even carried currency from several European countries and spoke multiple languages, including French and Japanese. When they asked him to point out his country on a map, he placed his finger near the border of France and Spain, where the Principality of Andorra is located. But he was confused. He insisted Taured had existed for over 1,000 years. He didn't understand why the map labeled it as Andorra. The customs officials were baffled. They questioned him further, trying to make sense of the situation. The man claimed he was in Japan on business, a trip he'd taken multiple times before. He said he worked for a company in Taured and was meeting with Japanese clients. He even had documentation to back it up. A letter of credit from his employer, business correspondence, and even a driver's license, all bearing the name of his supposed homeland. But none of it matched any known country or company on Earth. Authorities, now suspecting a more elaborate ruse, detained him for further questioning. They put him in a hotel room under guard while they investigated. His documents were confiscated and locked in a secure office, but when they went to check on him the next morning, the man was gone, vanished without a trace. The room was high up in the hotel with no balcony and only one way in or out, the hallway which had been guarded all night. His belongings were missing too, including his passport and paperwork, which had somehow disappeared from a locked security room. He was never seen again. What makes this story more chilling is how deeply documented it seems. The tale was first reported by Japanese customs and later found its way into various paranormal publications. Over the years, it became a cornerstone of time travel lore, parallel universe theories, and the unexplained. So who, or what, was the man from Taured? One theory is that he was a time traveler. Perhaps he came from the future or an alternate timeline where Taured existed. Something went wrong during the jump, and he ended up in a version of Earth where his country was never founded. This explanation is often tied to the idea of the multiverse, the belief that there are infinite realities layered on top of one another, each slightly different from the last. In one, you might be a famous actor. In another, you might not have been born at all. In this theory, the man somehow slipped between realities and got stuck in the wrong one. But there's another explanation, just as strange. Some believe the man was a jumper, a traveler from a parallel dimension who passed through a rift in space-time. This rift theory suggests there are thin spots in our universe where dimensions bleed into each other, sometimes allowing people or objects to cross over briefly before snapping back. These spots might be natural, like the Bermuda Triangle, or artificially created through high-energy experiments. Maybe the man crossed over by accident, or maybe someone pushed him through. Then there's the psychological angle. Some skeptics argue the man was delusional. suffering from a highly sophisticated case of dissociative identity, or even a form of cryptomnesia, where he unconsciously fabricated memories of a place that doesn't exist. But that doesn't explain the physical evidence. The passport, the documents, the multiple currencies. If this was a hoax, it was an elaborate one, far beyond what a single person could reasonably fabricate, especially in the 1950s. A few researchers think it was all a government test. The Cold War era was full of strange psychological experiments, MK Ultra, mind control trials, and covert intelligence tests. Could the man from Taured have been a plant? A test subject? Perhaps the Japanese government, or even the CIA, was testing responses to high strangeness events, seeing how customs and authorities would react to a traveler from a fake country. If that's true, it worked. The mystery remains unsolved to this day. There are also cultural interpretations. In folklore from around the world, there are stories of travelers from unknown lands, often appearing out of nowhere, bringing unfamiliar languages, clothes, and customs. In medieval Europe, there were tales of men from the land of Saint Martin, who appeared and disappeared just as mysteriously. In Japan, similar legends exist about people washing ashore from floating kingdoms no one had ever heard of. Some believe the man from Taured was a modern manifestation of that myth, a recurring archetype repeating itself through history. Even more bizarre is the idea that the man was not human at all, or at least not entirely. Some fringe theories suggest he may have been an alien or interdimensional being sent to observe us, and something went wrong. If so, the disappearance makes a grim kind of sense. Perhaps he was retrieved, or maybe he was never meant to be seen in the first place. Despite the theories, the story hits a wall. No official records from Tokyo Customs have ever surfaced. No photographs, no surveillance footage. Though, in 1954, that wouldn't be unusual. It's entirely possible the story was embellished over time, growing from a small incident into an urban legend. But even so, something about it sticks. It taps into a primal fear and curiosity about the borders of our world, about the people who might slip through the cracks. In recent years, the internet has reignited interest in the case. Reddit threads, YouTube deep dives, and conspiracy blogs have poured over every detail. Some users have even claimed to be from places no one else remembers. Tiny Mandela effects magnified into full alternate realities. It seems we're still haunted by the idea of the man from Taured. Not because we need the story to be true, but because deep down we suspect it might be. What if the world we know is just one version of reality? What if someone, somewhere, is telling a story about you, and the place you call home doesn't exist in their world? What if the man from Taured wasn't the only one? What if one day you land somewhere familiar, and no one knows where you're from?